You are listening to the best audio story of 2026. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and watch until the end so you don't miss the ending that will leave everyone stunned. A husband found a hotel keycard hidden inside his wife's Bible. Michael Bennett found a hotel keycard inside his wife's Bible on a Sunday morning, 30 minutes before church. That was what made it feel impossible. If he had found it in her purse, he might have been shocked. If he had found it in her coat pocket, he might have been suspicious. If he had found it in the glove compartment of her car, he might have been angry. But inside her Bible? Inside the worn leather Bible Claire carried every Sunday, the one with highlighted verses, prayer notes, folded church bulletins, and her name written in gold on the front, that made his hand go cold. The morning had begun like every other Sunday in their small suburban town outside Nashville. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, coffee brewed on the counter. Claire moved through the house in a cream dress, pearl earrings, and soft perfume, humming a worship song under her breath. To anyone watching, she looked like exactly what their church believed her to be: faithful wife, devoted volunteer, leader of the women's prayer group, the kind of woman older church ladies praised and younger wives quietly admired. Michael was not as publicly religious as Claire. He believed, but quietly. He did not raise his hands during worship or quote scripture easily in conversation. Claire did. She had always seemed more certain, more disciplined, more spiritually graceful. That was one of the reasons he trusted her. Maybe that was why the keycard hurt before he even understood what it meant. "Michael?" Claire called from upstairs. "Can you bring my Bible? It's on my nightstand. We're going to be late." He had been standing by the front door, checking his watch. "Got it." He went upstairs to their bedroom. The room was neat, as always. Claire's side of the bed was made perfectly. Her nightstand held a lamp, a small framed photo from their wedding, a glass of water, a bottle of lotion, and the Bible. Michael picked it up quickly. Something slipped from between the pages and fell to the floor, a small white sleeve. He frowned and bent down. At first, he thought it was a church offering envelope. Then, he saw the logo, the Briarwood Grand Hotel. His chest tightened. Inside the sleeve was a plastic hotel key card. Room 614. A date printed on the front. Friday, May 12. Michael stared at it. Friday, May 12. 2 nights ago, Claire had told him she was at women's Bible study that night. She had come home after 10, carrying this Bible against her chest, saying the meeting had gone long because several women needed prayer. Michael had kissed her cheek and told her he was glad she had people who needed her. Now he stood in their bedroom, holding a hotel key card that had been hidden between the pages of the book she carried to church. "Michael," Claire called again. "Did you find it?" He looked down at the open Bible. The card had fallen from the book of Proverbs. A verse was highlighted in yellow. "Lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight." Michael read it once, then again. His mouth went dry. Claire appeared in the bedroom doorway. "There it is," she said, smiling. Then she saw his face. Her smile disappeared. Michael slowly lifted the hotel key card. "What is this?" Claire went pale so quickly it answered before she did. For one long second, neither of them moved. The church bells began ringing in the distance. Michael and Claire had been married for 11 years. For most of those years, Michael believed their marriage was not perfect, but protected. Protected by vows. Protected by shared values. Protected by the faith Claire carried so openly. They met at a church food drive after a spring storm damaged several homes nearby. Michael had volunteered because his mother, Eleanor, insisted he needed to stop working like a machine and remember people existed. Claire was there organizing canned goods with the seriousness of a general preparing for war. "You're putting the vegetables with the soup," she said, when Michael sat down a box. He looked at the labels. "They're both food. They are different categories of food. Is this a spiritual issue?" She tried not to smile. "It might become one if you keep doing that." Michael laughed. That laugh became the beginning of everything. Claire was warm, organized, beautiful, and deeply involved in church. She remembered people's prayer requests. She visited widows. She organized meal trains for new mothers. She wrote thank you notes by hand. She had a way of making goodness seem practical, like something you could schedule and deliver in a casserole dish. Michael admired her. Then he loved her. When they married, Pastor David spoke about trust, truth, and covenant. Claire cried through her vows. Michael, nervous and overwhelmed, squeezed her hands as he promised to love her faithfully. He meant it. He believed she did too. Their marriage built itself around routines that looked ordinary but felt sacred. Sunday service, Wednesday dinners, Christmas Eve candlelight worship, volunteering at food drives, hosting small groups in their living room. Claire's Bible was always nearby, on the kitchen counter, in the passenger seat, beside her chair in the living room, on her nightstand. Michael had seen her cry over its pages. He had seen her underline verses about patience, forgiveness, and truth. He had seen her pray with women from church, her hand resting on the Bible as if it anchored her. He never imagined she could use that same book as a hiding place. But marriages do not usually collapse because one person suddenly becomes a stranger. They collapse because one person becomes a stranger in secret. Claire had been changing for months. Michael noticed, but not enough. She was quieter at dinner, more protective of her phone, more tired after church events. She began having extra meetings. Women's ministry planning, charity committee work, prayer nights, hospital visits, choir coordination, counseling support for someone going through a hard time. Michael never questioned it. Why would he? It was church. It was service. It was Claire. When she came home late, he said, "Long night?" She said, "People are hurting." He believed her. That was the cruelty of it. His trust did not make him foolish. It made her lie easier. Claire had met Ryan Cole at church 8 months earlier. He joined the worship team as a guitarist after moving back to town following a divorce. He was handsome in a wounded way, with dark hair, tired eyes, and a voice that sounded humble when he spoke about starting over. The church welcomed him warmly. Churches often do that, with broken men who know how to seem grateful. Claire helped organize the welcome lunch after his first month. Ryan stayed afterward, stacking chairs. Michael remembered shaking his hand. "Glad you're here," Michael said. Ryan smiled. "Feels good to belong somewhere again." Michael liked him. That memory later disgusted him. Ryan and Claire began working together on charity events. At first, everything seemed normal. Ryan played music during prayer nights. Claire coordinated volunteers. They exchanged messages about schedules, donations, and supplies. Then the messages changed. Ryan began thanking her for being kind to him when everyone else only saw his divorce. Claire told him she understood loneliness. Ryan said, "You? Everyone looks at you like you have the perfect life." Claire stared at that message for a long time. Then she replied, "Looking perfect is not the same as being known." That was the first door. Ryan knew how to open it. He asked questions Michael had stopped asking. Was she tired? Did she feel pressure to be strong for everyone? Did Michael really see her, or only the version of her the church praised? Did she ever feel trapped by being good? Claire should have stopped. Instead, she answered. At first, she told herself it was ministry. Ryan was hurting. He needed encouragement. She was helping. But she began deleting messages. That was when helping became hiding. The first time Ryan touched her hand, they were alone in the church fellowship hall after a meeting. Claire pulled away. "We can't," she whispered. Ryan lowered his eyes. "I know, I'm sorry." But he did not step back far enough. The first kiss happened 2 weeks later, in the church parking lot, behind the education building, where the security lights did not reach. Claire cried afterward. Ryan said, "Maybe this is the first honest thing you've allowed yourself to feel." That sentence should have horrified her. Instead, it comforted the part of her that wanted permission to sin without calling it sin. The affair grew behind religious language. They were praying through confusion. They were supporting each other. They were trying to understand God's will. But nothing holy requires deleted text, hidden meetings, or hotel rooms. Friday, May 12, Ryan booked room 614 at the Briarwood Grand Hotel. Claire told Michael she was going to Bible study. Before leaving, she stood in front of the mirror, holding her Bible in one hand and her purse in the other. For a moment, she looked at her own reflection and almost hated herself enough to stop. Almost. Then her phone buzzed. "Ryan, I'm already here. Don't make me face this night alone." She went. Afterward, shaking with guilt, she drove home with the hotel keycard still in her purse. She heard Michael moving in the kitchen when she entered and panicked. Without thinking, she slipped the keycard into her Bible, between the pages, beside the highlighted verse about truth. She meant to remove it later. But lies often survive because people assume they will clean them up before anyone notices. Claire forgot. Michael found it. In the bedroom doorway, Claire looked at the keycard, as if it were alive. Michael's voice was low. "Why was this in your Bible?" She swallowed. I can explain. The old phrase. The phrase people use when they cannot tell the truth quickly enough. Michael held up the sleeve. Briarwood Grand. Room 614. Friday night. Claire's eyes filled. Michael, you were at Bible study. She looked down. He waited. The silence stretched until the church bell stopped. Michael gave a small bitter laugh. There was no Bible study, was there? Claire did not answer. That was enough. He placed the Bible and keycard on the bed with more care than he felt. Get in the car. She looked up, startled. What? We're going to church. Michael, please. We are going to sit where we always sit. You are going to smile like you always smile. And I am going to find out whether my wife used God's house as a cover for a hotel room. Claire began crying. I'm sorry. Not yet, he said. She flinched. You don't get to start with, sorry, before I even know what you did. They drove to church in silence. Claire held the Bible in her lap with both hands. Michael glanced once at it and felt sick. The book itself had done nothing wrong. That made the violation worse. During service, Claire sang beside him. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. People smiled at her. A woman behind them touched Claire's shoulder during greeting time and whispered, Your prayer Thursday meant so much to me. Claire smiled back weakly. Michael watched it all. Every handshake, every hymn, every bowed head, every appearance of righteousness. Pastor David preached about integrity that morning. Michael almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because pain sometimes reaches a place where it becomes absurd. After service, Claire tried to leave quickly. Michael stopped near the hallway, where the women's ministry calendar hung on a bulletin board. He scanned Friday. No Bible study, no women's group, no prayer meeting, nothing. Then he saw Margaret Ellis, the women's ministry leader, walking by with a stack of papers. Margaret, Michael said. Claire stiffened beside him. Margaret smiled. Good morning, Michael. Was there a women's Bible study Friday night? Margaret frowned. No, honey. We cancelled this week because of the funeral dinner. Michael nodded slowly. Right? Margaret looked between them. Everything okay? Claire's face was white. Michael said, Did Claire mention where she was Friday? Margaret hesitated. She told me she couldn't help with the funeral meal because she was spending the evening at home with you. There it was. A secondalie. Claire had told Michael she was at church. She had told church she was with Michael. She had placed herself in the one location no one would question, because each side thought the other had her. Michael looked at his wife. Claire whispered, Please. He turned and walked out. The next 2 days were not dramatic from the outside. Inside Michael, they were catastrophic. He did not confront Claire fully yet. He needed facts. He hated that need, but suspicion without facts lets guilty people reshape reality. So he checked. Phone records showed repeated calls to Ryan, late-night messages, deleted threads partly recovered from a shared backup, a restaurant charge near the Briarwood Grand, a parking receipt, location data from Claire's phone that placed her near the hotel on multiple Friday nights. Multiple. Not one. Michael sat in his home office and created a timeline. March 24. Claire set prayer group planning. Location. Briarwood area. April 7. Claire set hospital visit. Location. Hotel district. April 21. Claire set charity storage inventory. Location. Ryan's apartment complex. May 12. Claire said Bible study. Hotel keycard found. He stared at the dates until they blurred. The affair had lasted at least 2 months, maybe longer. The Bible had not been a random hiding place. It had become part of a larger cover. He called the Briarwood Grand, pretending to confirm a lost item from room 614. The clerk would not give much information, but accidentally confirmed the room had been booked under Ryan Cole's name. Ryan Cole, church guitarist, divorced man seeking healing. The man who stood on stage Sunday mornings singing about grace. Michael printed the records, placed them in a folder, and waited until Wednesday night. Claire had been sleeping in the guest room since Sunday, not because they had agreed to it, because Michael had walked into their bedroom the first night and said, I can't sleep next to a lie. She left without arguing. On Wednesday, after dinner neither of them ate, Michael placed Claire's Bible and the hotel keycard on the kitchen table. Claire walked in, saw them, and stopped. The kitchen was quiet. The clock ticked above the stove. Michael sat down. Tell me the truth. Claire's eyes filled immediately. I had an affair with Ryan. The sentence was clean. No softening. No mistake. No, it just happened. Michael nodded once. How long? Almost 3 months. He looked away. 3 months. A season of his life had been fake. How many hotels? Claire covered her face. Michael? How many? 4 times. And the rest? His apartment, his car, after church sometimes. Michael closed his eyes. After church? He opened them and looked at the Bible. You hid this inside your Bible. I panicked. You used the one thing I thought kept you honest to hide the proof that you were lying. Claire sobbed. I know. No, Michael said, voice shaking now. I don't think you do. Because I trusted your church nights. I trusted your prayers. I trusted your ministry. I thought your faith meant there were places your conscience would not let you go. Claire cried harder. I was lonely. I believe you. She looked up through tears. I do. I believe I neglected you. I believe I admired your strength without asking what it cost. I believe I let you become the perfect wife in everyone's eyes, while forgetting you were still a woman who needed to be loved carefully. Her face crumpled. But loneliness could have been a confession, he said. Betrayal was a choice. She bowed her head. He pushed the keycard toward her. The problem is not where you hid it. The problem is what it proved. Claire whispered, I know. Michael's eyes were wet now. You didn't just lie to me. You made faith part of the lie. That broke her completely. She sank into the chair across from him and cried into her hands. For a long time, Michael let her cry. Not because he was moved, because there was nothing else left in the room but the sound of consequences arriving late. Michael confronted Ryan at the church on Thursday afternoon. He found him in the music room, tuning a guitar. The sight of it almost made Michael laugh. Ryan looked up. His expression changed. Michael closed the door behind him. I found the key card. Ryan went still. Michael stepped closer. Room 614. Briarwood Grand. Hidden inside my wife's Bible. Ryan looked down. Michael, I'm sorry. Michael shook his head. Do not borrow words you have not earned. Ryan set the guitar aside. It wasn't planned. Michael stared at him. You booked a hotel room. Ryan's jaw tightened. She was unhappy. Yes, Michael said. She was. Ryan blinked, surprised by the admission. Michael continued. And if you were a decent man, you would have told her to go home and tell her husband the truth. Ryan looked away. Michael's voice hardened. A man who sings about grace on Sunday should not meet another man's wife in a hotel on Friday. Ryan flinched. It became more complicated than that. No. You made it complicated because simple truth would have cost you what you wanted. Ryan said nothing. Michael stepped toward the door, then stopped. Did you love her? Ryan's face changed. I think so. Michael nodded slowly. Love does not need a hotel key hidden inside a Bible. He left before Ryan could answer. By Sunday, Ryan was no longer on the worship team. Pastor David called Michael privately and asked if he wanted to talk. Michael almost said no. Then he went. He sat across from the pastor in a small office, lined with books and old sermon notes. For the first time since finding the key card, Michael let himself look exhausted. Pastor David did not defend Claire. He did not minimize their affair. He did not say, we all fall short, as a way of rushing past the wound. He only said, I am sorry something sacred was used to hide something sinful. Michael stared at the floor. I don't know what I believe right now. The pastor nodded. I understand. I keep seeing the keycard fall out. That image may stay for a while. It makes me hate the Bible. Pastor David leaned forward. Then let me say this carefully. The Bible did not betray you. Claire did. Ryan did. The book was misused. That is not the same as the book being false. Michael's eyes burned. I trusted her because of her faith. That is understandable. Was I stupid? No, Pastor David said. You were trusting. Those are not the same thing. Michael looked up. The words landed somewhere deep. Trusting, not stupid. He needed that distinction to survive. The church community reacted exactly as church communities often do. Some people were compassionate. Some were cruel. Some wanted details disguised as prayer requests. Claire stepped down from every ministry role. Ryan left the church entirely. People whispered. Some avoided Michael because pain made them uncomfortable. Others cornered him with advice he had not asked for. Marriage is about forgiveness. One older man told him. Michael looked at him and said, So is truth. The man did not reply. Claire moved into her sister's guest room 2 towns away. At first, she wanted to keep everything quiet. Not to avoid accountability, she claimed, but to avoid hurting the church. Michael saw through that. The church is not what you're protecting, he said during one painful phone call. You're protecting the image that helped you hide. Claire cried. You're right. That was the first time she did not argue. She began counseling with someone outside their church. She also met weekly with an older woman named Ruth, who had no patience for spiritual performance. In their first meeting, Ruth placed a notebook in front of Claire. Write down what you did without using the words lonely, confused, or complicated. Claire cried for 10 minutes. Then she wrote, I had an affair. I lied to my husband. I lied to my church. I used ministry as cover. I hid a hotel key inside my Bible. Ruth read it and nodded. Now we can begin. Claire's healing, if it could be called that, began with losing the right to sound noble. She wrote Michael a letter a month later. The Bible did not betray you. I did. I hid my sin behind the very words that should have convicted me. I used faith as a costume when it should have been a mirror. I was lonely, but I chose deception. I was ashamed, but I chose secrecy. I am sorry for the affair. I am sorry for the hypocrisy. I am sorry that I made you question something sacred because of what I placed between its pages. Michael read the letter in his kitchen. He folded it carefully, then placed it in a drawer. Not forgiven, not forgotten, but not thrown away. That was all he could do. They tried counseling together for 4 months. The sessions were honest, painful, and ultimately not enough. Claire confessed everything. The first emotional boundary crossed. The first kiss, the hotel rooms, the Bible study lies, the key card, the way she carried her Bible into the house that Friday night, feeling sick with guilt, while Michael trusted the story she gave him. Michael listened. Sometimes he asked questions. Sometimes he could not. In one session, the counselor asked what hurt most. Michael did not say the affair. He said, the hiding place. Claire closed her eyes. Michael continued, if I found the key card in a trash can, it would still hurt. But inside the Bible, that was the part of you I thought still belonged to truth. Claire wept silently. He looked at her. I don't know how to explain this. It's like you did not just break our marriage. You broke the language I used to trust you. Claire nodded. I know. I don't think you do. She accepted that. By the final session, Claire asked if reconciliation was possible. Michael took a long time to answer. I may forgive you someday. Hope and fear crossed her face. But I cannot rebuild a marriage where I have to wonder whether every prayer meeting is a cover story. Claire bowed her head. I understand. I didn't lose faith because of you, he said. But I lost faith in the version of you that used holiness as a hiding place. She cried, but quietly. There was nothing left to defend. They decided to divorce. Not with screaming, not with revenge, with grief. Sometimes endings are quiet because everyone is too tired to keep breaking. Months later, Michael sat alone at the kitchen table. The divorce papers were signed. Claire had moved into a small apartment and continued counseling. Ryan had left town after losing his church role and reputation. The congregation had moved on in the way communities do, carrying the story as a warning, a rumor, or a prayer, depending on who told it. Claire's Bible remained on the table. She had left it behind the day she moved out. At first, Michael could not touch it. Then one evening, he opened it. The pages fell naturally to Proverbs. The highlighted verse was still there. Lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. Michael stared at the empty space between the pages where the key card had been hidden. The card itself was gone, sealed in an envelope with legal documents. For a long time, anger rose in him. Then something else. Sorrow. The Bible had not lied. In a terrible way, it had told the truth. The key card fell from the place where truth had been written all along. Michael ran his fingers over the highlighted verse. He thought of Claire crying in the kitchen, Ryan in the music room, Pastor David saying, trusting is not stupid. He needed to believe that. He needed to believe he had not been foolish for trusting his wife's goodness. The shame belonged to the people who turned sacred language into camouflage. Michael closed the Bible. He did not feel healed, but he felt separate from the lie. That was a beginning. A year after the divorce, Michael returned to regular Sunday service. Not every week, not with the old ease, but honestly, some Sundays, he sat in the back and left before anyone could ask too many questions. Some Sundays, he sang nothing. Some Sundays, he listened. Some Sundays, he was angry. Pastor David once told him, that counts. What does? Showing up honestly. Michael almost smiled. Claire did not return to that church. She found a smaller congregation in another town much later, after months of counseling and accountability. She did not join the women's ministry. She did not lead anything. She sat quietly in the back. For the first time in years, she let herself be unknown. One evening, she wrote in her journal, faith can be a mirror or a mask. I used it as a mask. A mask can impress people, but it cannot save a soul from becoming false. She closed the journal and cried. Not because crying fixed anything, because at least the tears were finally honest. Michael eventually placed Claire's Bible in a box with a few other things from their marriage. Wedding photos, old letters, a church bulletin from the day they married, and the envelope containing the hotel key card. He did not keep the key card because he wanted pain. He kept it because for a while, truth needed evidence. Later, perhaps he would throw it away. Not yet. One evening, his mother Eleanor came over for dinner and saw the box open. She picked up the Bible gently. Does this hurt to see? Michael nodded. Yes. Do you want me to take it? He thought about that, then shook his head. No, it didn't do anything wrong. Eleanor looked at him with sad pride. No, honey, it didn't. After she left, Michael opened the box one more time. He looked at the wedding photo. Claire smiling. Michael young and hopeful. Pastor David standing behind them. Ryan was not in that photo. The betrayal had not entered the frame yet. Or maybe it had. In ways no one could see. Michael touched the edge of the picture. For the first time, he did not hate the man he had been. That man had loved sincerely. That man had trusted. That man had believed vows mattered. None of those things were shameful. The shame belonged elsewhere. Michael closed the box and placed it on the highest shelf of the closet. Then he walked back to the kitchen, where evening light rested across the table. The table looked ordinary now. No key card. No confrontation. No Bible opened like evidence. Just wood, silence, and the possibility of peace. Faith can guide a marriage, but it cannot become a costume for deception. When someone hides betrayal inside something sacred, the deepest wound is not only the affair. It is realizing that truth was used as decoration while lies lived between the pages. But truth does not become false because someone hides a lie near it. A Bible can hold a key card. A church can hold a hypocrite. A marriage can hold secrets. But eventually, what is hidden falls out. And when it does, the person left holding it must decide whether to hate the truth for exposing the lie or thank it for refusing to stay silent. Michael did not thank it yet. Not fully. But one quiet Sunday morning, long after the divorce, he sat in the back pew of the church, opened his own Bible, and read without pretending. That was enough. For that day, it was enough.